So a lot of times with these AVS2 carburetors, I see a lot of people have kind of a lean tip-in or a lean hit right off the rip, and then the fuel starts to catch up on the AFR gauge. I've gone through a couple of these different accelerator pumps. This is going to be Edelbrock part number 1468 with this reddish orange plunger on it. It's a much stiffer spring. And my understanding is that this one is a much quicker, more aggressive shot that's less sustained, whereas the blue one, which is part number from Edelbrock 1470, is going to be a more gentle but more sustained hit. All we're really going to need is a T25 bit. I like using a pick to get the spring clips off, a little magnet to grab them so they don't fly away, and a flathead screwdriver. You can use power tools for this job. I'm going to just use the old reliable ratchet because I don't like to pump out all the gas in it. I like to just leave all the gas in the bowls. So the first thing that I like to do is, before I start taking the top half of the carb apart, I like to go ahead and get the spring clips off. Pump arm, and I'll just set everything carefully over here. And then I've got one on the choke arm. This one's a little stiff. There we go. All right. So if you're worried about orientation on these and whatnot, you don't have to take the arm all the way off. In fact, what I like to do is set it on the edge of my workbench, pull out a drawer, and I'll just kind of let it dangle along the edge of the workbench. If it falls, it'll just catch in this drawer. I don't have to worry about going under the bench. And pull out the step cable. Get the choke arm off. Next thing we're going to do is actually undo the arm for the accelerator pump. It's just a flathead screw right here. And what you can do to mark the orientation of this little S-clip here is you can go ahead and lift this up. Keep everything intact. Just go ahead and pop that screw back in there. Got it lifted up, and I'm just going to set this to the side in the same orientation that it wants to be in once the carb is assembled. And next up, we can start taking the top half of the carb off. Once again, T25. They shouldn't be too tight. You don't want them so tight. I'm just going to loosen all of them up in a pattern and then undo them by hand. I have seen a video before where one of these screws is longer than the other. That is not the case on mine, but whenever you do this, just check and make sure if there's any screws that are longer than the others, just to set them separately so you don't get them mixed up. Then another thing, before you take this hat off, I like to go ahead and pull the step-up springs and pistons and get the metering rods out. That way, whenever we reassemble the top half, I don't have to be so precise with, getting those metering rods back down perfectly into the little tiny holes that they go into. So we're going to take a 1/4-inch socket. I'm just going to go ahead and loosen these up. Because of the step-up springs, these have tension on them. So what I like to do is break them loose. Take the pick, hold down that tension, and just go by hand. All right, should be enough. And get this screw out here. I'll set that to the side, let up that tension, set the plate to the side, use the pick, lift up that step-up piston and metering rod, just set her there. Gonna go ahead and back out all of these T25 headed screws. All right, I got all the screws out. I will take out the step-up springs because I'm going to set it upside down so that I protect the floats and the gasket surface. Now we simply just lift up on the hat and it'll come apart. I have a brand new gasket under here, and I know that it's not going to stick to the surfaces because I take this thing apart all the time. But if you haven't taken this carburetor apart recently, then be prepared to have to go get another gasket for the middle section here. Now we're just going to lift up. Be careful not to tear the gasket. I'm going to flip it upside down and just set it to the side. All right, so here's the inside of our carburetor. There's the pump, easily accessible. There's going to be this spring underneath it that holds it in place. And here, this is the 1470 pump. Once again, it's a more sustained shot with a more forgiving spring. Just gonna set that over here. And here's our new pump. Doesn't matter which way the hole lines up whenever you set it in, because you can always twist it once it's in. We're just gonna drop that in. We're gonna start putting it back together. There's the top half of the carb. Be real careful not to smush or twist the gasket or kink up the floats. We'll go ahead and start dropping in the screws. All right, we're gonna snug these down. Remember, this is aluminum. We don't want to tighten it too much. Just good and tight to where we know it's not gonna rattle apart. All right. Got the top half back on. Go ahead and drop back in our step-up springs. And our pistons and metering rods. Make sure the spring gets lined up to go back into the piston. All right. And getting these back in can be a little tricky with that spring tension, so I'm just going to line it up. Hold it down with a pick. Get this screw started. Going with the 1/4 inch. All right, we're gonna make sure that these step-up plates are actually where they need to be in here. Kind of oddly shaped. We don't want any kind of misalignment here. And then the same thing with these, just a little bit snug. We don't want to go too tight. All right, that part done. Now the fun part of putting the spring clips back in. So we'll start with the pump arm. Pop the screw out that we left in. We're gonna get this hole to where we can actually get this S-clip in. Throw that in there. Reach down and start threading the screw. All right, we'll get this one snug down too, so that arm doesn't pop off. Now this arm that we let dangle down here, we'll go ahead and push this. Now the slot that you actually put this in matters a little bit. It doesn't matter as much as I've read online whenever you actually put it into practice, but this very top hole, starting right here, is the most aggressive shot. I just always put it in that. Spring clip on. Very good. However, it's cold out like it is right now. These can be a little bit of a pain. There we go. All right, and there we have it. That's how you change the accelerator pump on an Edelbrock AVS2 carburetor. Cheers.